Welcome to In 5 Minutes. The agenda of this clip is to understand the fabrication steps for an nwell process and go ahead and extend our understanding to correlate the understanding and appreciate the need of twin tub process. Okay, let's get started. In the previous clip, I have shown you the basic steps for diffusing impurities and wells, and I have also spoken about how polysilicon gets deposited. I strongly request all of you, if you have not heard that clip, to please go ahead and listen to that clip because that will serve as a prerequisite to understanding this clip. Now, the CMOS can be fabricated using different processes. The different processes can be the nwell process, p-well process, the twin tub process, SOI process, silicon on insulator, and so on and so forth. And it follows a series of steps in each of them. Ideally, if you are talking about nwell process, that means you have a P substrate in which you will have your nwell, and nwell will be the place where your PMOS would be built and P substrate would be the place where your NMOS would be built. Similarly, a P-well process is nothing but you will have your N substrate. The well would be a P type. In P-well, we know that NMOS would be fabricated in N substrate, a PMOS would be fabricated. And if you see properly, in both the cases, your NMOS and CMOS both are getting fabricated. So this is a part of CMOS fabrication processes. In twin tub, what's going to happen is, say you have a substrate of a type and you would have both N-well and P-well, and in N-well you will have your PMOS getting fabricated, and in P-well you will have your NMOS getting fabricated. And the reason why we use twin tub process is because it helps us in reducing latch up, which we have covered in one of the clips, because it has an additional step which leads to a growth of epitaxial layer, which we'll talk about when the time comes. For the time being, these are the basics. What we need to understand is NMOS and PMOS both are going to be fabricated together, so it becomes a CMOS, and a P-well has to be created on an N substrate, or an N-well has to be created on a P substrate when you talk about different well processes. So I think that's the basic which you need to understand. Let's quickly get started with the N-well process here. So this is very straightforward, as I mentioned, if you have heard the previous clip. So the first step in fabrication is to get this P substrate. How do you get this P substrate? Through a process called a Djordjelski process, in which you grow your crystal, and once your crystal is ready, this step is also called crystal growth. Using the Djordjelski process, the P-type silicon substrate is developed from the silicon crystal. So this is crystal growth. Again, we are not getting into details of Djordjelski process, but this is a process through which you can easily get your substrate. You get your wafer, and from your wafer, suppose this is your wafer, each part of it you can fabricate a lot of ICs, and when you build your substrate from the silicon crystal, this is what you would get. The next step is nothing but oxidation. The oxidation process is done by using high purity oxygen and hydrogen, which are exposed in an oxidation furnace approximately at 1000 degrees centigrade, and over the entire substrate now you have an SiO2 layer which is deposited. So very simple. What you need to take from this clip is, through Djordjelski process, you got your substrate. In this case, because it's an N-well, I got a P substrate, and over that I just deposited SiO2 layer through oxidation.